first time you saying it was your son and he's doing time for this. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the second time when they found it, you said it was your friend. That is what the report said. You stated that my friends were looking at bestiality and it was disgusting, but they were looking at it on your computer.
That was right. When I had brought it, I said that they had been looking at my computer, correct? Right. But as far as the other charges go, that was that this the Stapleton said, yeah, I knew nothing about that.
But
Now
you
I
did
knew
know
nothing
your
about
friend.
that too, but other people had access to my computer. That was my point. That was my point. I didn't have.
But I mean, I'm just curious. I mean,
Yes, sir.
you know,
Yes,
you
sir.
said you was in law enforcement. I was in law enforcement.
Oh, I know.
I never let nobody look at pornography on my computer.
Well,
Mr. Freeman with the mic drop. You know, I like to say about him is he talks softly, but he carries a big stick. And every once in a while, he drops a mic. And that was epic. We're about to watch the pardon hearing of a former NOPD sergeant arrested on 38 counts of CP. And also, you heard about the whole animal people thing. That's, yeah, okay. But he only got probation. Anyways, now he's trying to say, hey, expunge my record. Wipe it clean. I'm in it. It was my son. It was my friends. It was, you know, anyways, I'll unpack it at the end.
And you have counsel with you. He's here on Zoom. Sir, would you introduce yourself for the record?
Yes, Commissioner Keith Couture, attorney for Bradley Wax.
So, and let me acknowledge you have your wife, Cherie Wax, who is also here in support. Thanks for being here. Mr. Wax, I'll read some identifying information into the record, ask you to confirm that it's accurate. We'd like for you then to tell us why are you seeking a pardon with restoration of firearms and why we should vote favorably for you today.
okay.
And once you do that, we'll hear from your attorney for his presentation and then we'll begin our interview process.
Okay.
Okay, ready? So, Mr. Wax, your DOC number is 701-833. You're seeking a pardon with restoration of firearms. You were sentenced in August 2015 in the 22nd Judicial District, St. Tammany Parish, for an offense. It was obscenity. You received a 3-year hard labor sentence that was suspended and you were placed on 5 years probation. Is that information correct?
Right. And I was released 3 or 7 months.
So tell us a bit about, what happened to you and why you submitted an application for pardon.
So first, what happened to me?
Yeah, what brought you here?
Oh, what brought me here? As far as wanting to receive a pardon.
The criminal activity. We want to hear a little bit about that.
Oh. Placed on an insanity charge. It was to keep the non-sexual aspect of it. And quite frankly, I just took responsibility for the action, basically. It involved a much bigger case. It was a lot involved with this, of another individual, and to, as I said, as I've always done my whole life, I just took responsibility whether I did it or not. And that responsibility had a lot to do with family, finances. I had 2 careers. We're in law enforcement and we're in the Navy. Both of them went gone because of this. So to save those pensions and to make sure that my wife, because some very serious illness, would have some stability, some financial. Not she'd have to basically sell everything.
So why are you seeking the pardon
Well,
with restoration of firearms?
yeah, you say that the reason I'm seeking it is to get that part of my life, put it permanently in the past, You never wipe the slate clean, but you pass. I guess, the investigator asked me that, and I said that, at first, I really didn't know what to say. I was, of course, I wanted to put it in the past, I wanted to move on, but I moved on. What I've always done. And recently I ran across a quote by the author Maria Robinson. She says, you can't go back to the beginning and start over. You can begin now, create a new ending. I guess that's what I'm doing. I'm big on legacy, big on family. My family's been in Louisiana, one of the first families in Louisiana. I just want to start that ending to my life. I mean, it's going to be a hard thing to now move on because I've already done that, but just I don't know how to explain it. It's just tough. I just want to get this off my back and keep going. It gives me a lot of, also besides rights, it gives me a lot of opportunity, a lot more opportunities and privileges. I think I should have added that on to the reasons too. I mean, when you get that felony conviction off of you, then you have a lot more privileges and opportunities. In my head, you can't get into a lot of activities because of that conviction. You can't get in the medical field, and I had 2 years of nursing school. You can't get into a lot of other businesses. You can't. There's a lot of things you can't do when you bought it from felon because of it. And as far as me trying to sell you on why I should, I mean, basically, it's a nonviolent crime. It's no victim. I've got a buku education. I've had an outstanding record with the police department, outstanding, and stellar record with the United States Navy. There's no doubt about that. You have all the paperwork. Really hurt me, the Navy. Police department, law enforcement know that. Yeah, okay. But it's just that, and as far as, like I said, as far as financial aspects, I'm more than financially able. Understand what your job is here. Your job is to determine the risk. I mean, and do I pose a risk to society? Am I going to contribute to the public? Am I self-sufficient? Do I have an education? Am I showing any tendency to do anything? I mean, this has been a 10-year process for me. I mean, this all started January 2014. It's been a long time. I mean, even though I've just got off of it in 2019, it's been a long process. So just looking at that record, looking at the fact of things I've done, professionalism, I mean, education-wise, a couple of degrees, a stint at the Naval War College, I've done a lot. I can do a lot. And I'm just, the stigma it just hurts me from doing other things I'd like to do as far as contributing to the community. Well, right now I'm volunteering at the Humane. I'm big on animals. I got 2 rescue animals. I work for the Humane Society as far as volunteering and that kind of thing. But I've always done a responsible thing. I liked it or not, just follow those commands, whether I liked it or not. Done what needed to be done. And again, I just want that stigma. As far as the firearms go, I mean, law enforcement, Navy, I mean, goodness knows I'm efficient, but I think in that respect, who would you rather see? Me, somebody who's actually been in situations, who understands the severity of carrying a weapon and even drawing a weapon, or someone who sticks in their purse and doesn't really have a lot of qualifications or understanding of the consequences involved. I mean, I've been there. I've been on first aid shootings, so I have a full understanding of what it takes, the responsibilities involved with it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We'd like to hear from your attorney now, Mr. Couture.
Thank you, Chairman. As you heard Mr. Wax say, he has an excellent record. He had an excellent record before this. He has an excellent record after. Obviously, from the records that y'all were able to review, you understand that this case started with his son being the target of an investigation. Through this whole matter, it comes down to Mr. Wax having a choice, his family or fighting. As he told you, he did what was the responsible thing, and that's what he did. And he's not here to argue that y'all should give him a break because maybe he had a good defense or maybe he could have won something. He's here to say, as he submitted in these records, the risk of him reoffending is virtually nil. The risk of him not being a contributing member of society is virtually nil. He is here asking for the ability to continue all of the good works he did before that day. He's here asking you to recommend to the governor that he get a full pardon. And obviously, I'm able to answer any questions the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Wax, your case has been assigned to Mrs. Stapleton, so she'll take the lead on the interview.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Wax, I gotta tell you, this case was very upset. Really was. And so I'm just gonna read from like the Bill of Information, stuff like that. The original Bill of Information charged Bradley Wax with 38 counts of pornography involving juveniles. 7/2015, count 1 of the bill was amended to obscenity. Counts 2 through 38 were novelized. And this all started in January. An online undercover operation led investigators to execute a search warrant on the Wax home. After a forensic analysis of computers and other devices seized during the search, investigators determined he was in possession of child pornography. The arrest is a result of a joint investigation with Louisiana Attorney General Cybercrime Unit, St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office, and Homeland Security. Later, it was determined by Homeland Security it didn't rise to the to their standard of federal crime. So that's why it stayed as a state crime. So from what I read, the actual crime was terrible. And then there was a plea bargain of obscenity.
Yeah, what now?
The plea bargain was 1 count of obscenity.
Right.
You see that? I mean, I see that all the time up here, that the actual crime is one thing, but then you have the plea bargain. And another thing I read was this, that when during the 2014 investigation, police investigation, or whatever, Mr. Wax admitted to
Never happened. And he'll attest to that.
okay.
That statement was never given by me, it was given by the other person at the residence.
Okay, okay.
That's why all that was no crossed. I didn't come to them for a plea deal. After it took them 8 months to build, 8 months. It took another 7 months before they come to us, my other attorney, and say, you don't have a case. We will, however, offer you a plea deal. Now they came to me for a plea deal. That's why there are no process charges. Page 53 of the forensic report specifically states that I never searched for, never looked for, never networked for. There was no account set up. There was no saving. There was nothing. Page 53 of that report. That's why they no-crossed it. Now I went from spending 20 years in prison to 5 months of probation. That's an indicator right there. They didn't have a case because I didn't do it. And the forensic report they had specifically stated that. I went ahead and took that plea deal that they came to me with for those reasons that Keith and I both explained. The other person who was involved in this is at Rayburn Correctional right now. He was the target of the investigation. I go there twice a month to see him, so. That's how all this went. I had nothing to do with that, nothing at all. But me to go before a jury, St. Tammany Parish, and get them to understand basic computer forensics, good luck with that. To get them to add on that charge to the other charges, I've been to enough jury trials, sat in, witnessed. For them to say, well, yeah, you probably didn't do that, but we feel better if we charge them with something. So there was no way I was gonna do that. I went ahead and took that deal, protect her, and protect everything I had left, basically, and I lost a lot. Wrote my name on the internet, that'll never go away. I'm some perverted deviant, even though I didn't even do it, and that'll never go away. So, yes, that's why I took the deal, and that's exactly what happened. He can confer with that, and I did not admit to it, doggone thing. And they knew that. That's why they don't pass the charges. They would have never known pass those charges they had. And Mr. Couture can explain all of that.
Well,
Well, we-
I was just to say, this is not a trial court. So
No,
I'm
no,
not
I
gonna go
understand.
there. But I understand you defending yourself. I do. I get that. I know what I'm reading here.
Right.
And I understand you defending yourself and you've got an attorney with you. Of course, this is not a court proceeding and I'm not an attorney. So I'm just going by
Yes, ma'am, I
what I've
understand.
read in the records.
And my point is that regardless, I took responsibility and regardless, as Keith said, I mean, I've never posed a risk before to anything or anybody. And I don't now, and I definitely won't. I'm about the surest thing to it. I'm about the closest thing to a sure bet you can get.
Okay.
Not to be arrogant, but yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Well, I don't have any further questions.
Mr. Freeman?
Okay, all right, so the first time you saying it was your son and he's doing time for this, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now the second time when they found it, you said it was your friend.
And
That is what the report said. You stated that my friends were looking at bestiality and it was disgusting, but they were looking at it on your computer.
that was, right, when I had brought it, I said that they had been looking at my computer, correct? Right, but as far as the other charges go, that was, that this, Stapleton said, yeah, I knew nothing about that.
But
Now, I
you
knew
did know
nothing
your
about
friend.
that too, but other people had access to my computer, that was my point. That was my point, I didn't have,
But I mean, I'm just curious. I mean,
Yes, sir.
You
Yes, sir.
said you was in law enforcement. I was in law enforcement.
oh, I know.
I never let nobody look at pornography on my computer.
Well, I mean, they were looking
You
at it.
didn't know. Okay, that was my question.
No, I know they had all I said is they had access. Okay, that was it. That's all I said, is that other people had access to the computer.
All right. I have no further questions. Madam Chair.
Are there any other questions? Right. Yeah, Mr. Wax, I don't see any other questions. Are we prepared to vote?
Did my attorney make any more comments? It's all right.
If you'd like to close it out for us.
Thank you, Chairman. Basically, as you can see from Mr. Wax's emotions, this was a very, very tough decision for him to make at that time. He was faced with obviously having to choose between family or himself. He does not wish to re-argue the case here today. He is simply asking this board to allow him to regain the status he had before, obviously without erasing anything. It's impossible to erase anything. He has made amends. He has served his time. He was released early from probation because of those good works. He has no, I haven't heard of any opposition from anyone in regard to this. I don't know if you have some, Madam Chairman, but I have not seen any. I don't believe there is any risk of any recidivism of any kind for Mr. Wax. He is asking for this at his age because he has to rebuild what he had before. And because of that, I believe his age should weigh in this factor. And we would ask for your consideration of a recommendation to the governor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let me just state, since you brought it up, the opposition comes from the 22nd Judicial District Attorney. They did respond on behalf of the Attorney General's office. No, let's see, this was Mr. Clark responding on behalf of the DA's office. They're opposed to the clemency application, but they gave no further comment. And then the sheriff had opposition, but his is a standing policy of opposition. So that's the opposition that we have. So, Ms. Stapleton, you prepared to vote?
Yeah, my vote is,
My wife said she wanted.
Oh, well, yeah, it's indicated here that she did not wish to speak. Would you like to
You
speak?
want to
ma'am?
speak? No, no, just
The only thing I want to say is this is total upending our lives out of the blue. And what started as an investigation, my son turned into really almost an investigation of my family.
Mhm.
It has made a problem, a health problem that I have so much worse. I have doctor's appointments where they go through and like, oh dear God, these years were, it's improving, you know, but it shows. And everybody keeps the score, not just for myself and the issues that I've had facing this with my husband, who is a stellar husband, an exceptional father, a human being. He's so giving of himself, not just to us as family and his family, but neighbors. You know, that's always who Brandon was before. There's part of him that almost died with this, you know, almost because of the court of opinion that weighs in. I don't look at the computer. My son did one time and said, Mother, it's horrible. He said, I don't recognize this person. I don't want to know that. I don't want to know what people think that don't know him or us. I know the man I've been married to for 38 years. He's an exceptional person, not just of his heart, his intellect. He is more than deserving to start this again.
Thank you. We appreciate your.
My son comes out of prison in 6 months. He suffered so much with the idea that I've done this to y'all. I've done this to y'all. Financially, it's destroyed us, trying to rebuild and keep a reputation there, you know, paying everything on time. I've gone through all of my savings to do it, you know, and then some. Brad has a job. I had to quit working, you know, shortly before that because of my health issues. And then this happened. And again, we've got a tough road ahead of us if my son gets out. As you can see, his issues. He has been beyond exceptional with the idea that Ryan can't change what happened. And he doesn't want him to feel like he's got a cross to bear for this too. But somewhere, something's got to be right for my family. It's just to restore something back to this man.
Thank you so
He's
much.
deserving.
We appreciate it. We just thank you.
Mr. Wax, I see here that your probation was terminated due to earned compliance credit on 2019.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we're just talking, 5 years ago. So,
Well, yes. Good. Yes, ma'am. Fine.
Okay, so-
But again.
I'd like
I
to see.
understand, yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, I'd like to see a cleansing period between the end of everything that has to do with this crime, because it was an awful crime. I'd like to see a longer cleansing period than 5 years, and there is law enforcement opposition. So based upon that, I'm going to deny.
Can I say one thing
Yeah, we're
first?
voting now, Mr. Wax. I'm sorry. Mr. Prater.
Thank you.
I I feel for you. Because sometimes the system can, like this, and because I've been involved in a lot of different cases like this where computers are seized from houses and, on and on and on. But the point of the matter is you pled guilty to something. And that's what this board, we don't try the cases, we just look and see. And you pled guilty to something and it's and I think to be comfortable with this, I gotta agree with Ms. Stapleton that we need a longer period of time for our conscience, for what we're appointed here to do. And so my vote would also be to deny.
Mr. Freeman.
I concur. I mean, it's a very serious charge. I understand maybe he was in a bind and he pled to a much lesser offense, pretty much a nothing offense, but my vote today is to deny and need longer cleansing period.
Mr. Tiller.
It's very difficult for me. I understand what you're going through. After reading the case and seeing that the DA and sheriff, I'm going to vote to grant.
With restoration.
Yes.
All right. Mr. Wax, this is hard. You don't have the vote yet. It requires 4 votes, and so you already know what the outcome is. I will say that I read it carefully over and over. I understand what you're saying, and I can see you're passionate about your position. But as Mr. Prater said, you played guilty, and so there are consequences. I do recognize the lifetime of service to your community in the United States for your service. I see no other criminal activity. I will give you a shot and vote to grant a pardon with restoration of firearms. However, you didn't get the vote you needed today because it takes 4. So the outcome of today's proceeding is that your application has been denied. Good luck.
I burst out laughing. I almost lost my train of thought and actually my rage to this entire thing when Tilla says, he can't make it up. He's like, I read the report, and because of the DA and the sheriff, I grant. What are you saying, bro? Whoa! Like, how do you still have this job? How did you get it to begin with? There's something not right. It's starting to feel like there's something more going on that we don't see. I don't know. I'm just saying there's something very off. But then Miss Renata says she's going to grant. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Miss Cheryl Renata, just when I feel like I'm starting to love you again, you go and throw something out like that. I mean, even the sheriff was showing empathy towards him. And I get the sheriff and law enforcement, and he's saying, well, I've seen things with computers, but the only 2 that really were on par with me was Mr. Freeman and Miss Stapleton. They were not buying any of it. They were not drinking the Kool-Aid. Let's be real. This case, this just reeks. And it's not just this case that reeks. It's apparently this police department. They've made the news. Look at this. They were, look at this one, Sir Richard found. So in the same department, officer charged with essay of a child, right? And it turns out that the child was essayed. The police officer put in charge of the case, then SA'd that same child. So let's go through that. And I'm bringing this up because they bring up our prince over here, the innocent prince. It's just my son who's in prison now, whose stuff it wasn't. You know, at first I was like, gosh, Sir Richard, is it possible? You know, maybe it was his son. And his son is in prison for it. And then the second time they found this stuff, well, it could have been his son as well. You know, Sir Richard, could we find out if his son was home at the time? And, you know, so he blamed it on his friends instead of his son. And that's why. And it's, no, I'm not, no way. There's just not, I just don't, when you look at his record, he's suing people left and right. There's a bit of the court transcript will show you where he throws a tantrum about losing his job. And it's this guy, even you could feel the animosity that he's holding there in the courtroom. And who the hell would take like, so there's a lot of things you'll do for your kid, but if you're a 17-year or whatever sergeant in the police force, would he really take up you might take a bullet, you would take a bullet for your kid, but would you take a CP charge for your kid? Hell no. You know, and that would be a bad parent, and you would deserve everything you got. And all he got was probation. And now he's asking to have a pardon. The whole thing is just unbelievable. And I love how Mr. Freeman brought up, he's like, oh, that was the best. Sometimes one thing I love about Mr. Freeman is that when it's like he talks softly but carries a big stick, and when he drops the mic, and it comes out of like left field. He's like, I would never let anyone use my computer. And like, can you imagine what kind of friends is he having? Like, oh yeah, my buddies came over to my computer and they just started watching horses and people doing it, talking about horses and people doing it. We covered a pardon hearing. I don't know if you saw it. Very few people saw it. You know, sometimes the algorithm is not friendly. But it was a different state we covered. What state was it? I can't even remember. It was a state we don't normally cover. And it was a veterinarian who was caught on camera doing it to his horses. And so he got a charge for it, and he lost his license. And it was something like 6 years later, we find out that he gets married to the woman who he was engaged with at the time, has 2 children. Why that woman would do that is just absolute madness. You find that he has 2 little girls now, 6 and 3, absolute madness. And the Board of Pardons grants him without asking a single question. So he had his record expunged. But there are different states that take things differently. And I just have, you just got to feel badly for the cats and the dogs that live there. And let's just go through this right now. And before I go further, I do want to give a special shout out and thank you to Nicole J. You know who you are. She emailed and said, Mandu, you have to cover this. I'm watching it. And that is a huge, that is deeply appreciated. If any of you see something, that I miss in Louisiana archives, whatever it is, email me, let me know. And it makes a big difference because it's impossible to be have a finger on everything with all the different hearings we're covering. So thank you, Nicole. You rock. All right. Oof, there's so much rot in New Orleans. When you read this report, it just feels bad. Police in New Orleans are hired to protect and serve, but in recent years, many have been arrested with charges with crimes. In the last 12 months, more than half a dozen officers of the New Orleans Police Department have been booked and charged with various crimes. And I have some information to believe that there are many stories that are going to be is going to shock New Orleans that might come out sometime soon. So just keep an eye on that. Now, in many of those cases, the officers are placed on what NOPD refers to as emergency suspension without pay. But the WDSUI team has learned that types of suspension only last so long as some officers charged with serious crimes are back on the job working, much to the surprise of some. In a quiet Mandeville neighborhood, many people living in a subdivision near Lake Poncho, all right, local Louisianians, tell me how to pronounce this word, Causeway, know the NOPD sergeant who lives nearby. Several residents were shocked when the 16-year-old veteran of the force, Bradley, was arrested and charged with 38 counts of PC. No, but it was my son. When Wax was arrested, the Louisiana Attorney General's office said investigators found CP on computers and electronic devices. Oh, that was great when his attorney totally messed up. As far as I know, there's no opposition. And they're like, there is. The Attorney General actually is opposing. Because of the nature of the crime and the number of the counts filed, Wax faced a worst case scenario of more than 500 years behind bars, and he got probation. The NOPD was wasted no time in announcing that Wax had been placed on emergency suspension without pay back in April 2014. 12 months later, the I-team found Wax on the job, working in fleet management at the headquarters. Dr. John Penny, criminologist at South University of New Orleans, has followed NOPD issues for the bulk of his career. It's incredible. It's incredibly hard to imagine anyone in that capacity would be back working and being paid for it at taxpayer expense. And that is incredible. But Wax is, and he's not alone. In February 2014, longtime NOPD officer Michael Tomasi was arrested and charged with aggravated SA, the state's most serious SA charge. I think that carries a life sentence. In Tomasi's case, prosecutors said the alleged victim was a child in his care, younger than 10 years old. As with Wax, the police department placed him on emergency suspension without pay. But listen to this. The I-team found him working behind a desk at NOPD's 4th District. Can you imagine? Yeah, I'm a police officer. My buddy behind the desk, well, he has, say, the 10-year-old he was meant to protect. And the other one, well, he's got a lot of CP and animals on his computers. An emergency suspension is generally used as a tool in emergency situations when an officer has been arrested and is physically unable to come back to work to perform their duties. Once the officer is able to return to work, they are assigned to administrative duties pending an outcome of an investigation. Based on civil service rules, officers are disciplined after an investigation is completed and a formal disciplinary hearing has been held. The Police Association of New Orleans admits the situation is difficult given the charges, but say the officers are innocent until proven guilty. Eric Heisler is an attorney for the association and claims even though they wear the shield at will, the authority of an officer, it's very rare that they'll be interacting with the public in any fashion. I mean, basically they're innocent until proven guilty, and so they get to go back and work in there. But man, I don't, that doesn't make any sense to me because there are other businesses. If you get accused of something like this, they just fire you, right? Sports teams do that. Someone gets what happened to that Major League Baseball player who got falsely accused? He's a superstar, and the MLB kicked him out of the league without anything. It was just an accusation, and it turns out to be completely false. So the MLB takes it more seriously than the police. Is that what our takeaway is? It also brings us to an official arrested in early March, charged with soliciting. Oh, another one. The NOPD gang task force was arrested and charged with soliciting a lady of the night, a misdemeanor, placed on emergency suspension. But less than 2 months later, about 50 days, he was back at work again. So they basically go through the list of all the dirt in the swamp in Louisiana. And he ends up just getting probation. How do you only get probation for this? Where is there more? So Sir Richard provided many, many, many documents. Let me pause this and find it for you. Okay, it appears that some of the lawsuits that Sir Richard found were citizens who this police officer was involved in arresting, and they filed suits saying there was excessive force used. And that could be a red herring. It could be, who knows? I'm not gonna, it seems to be the same person filed 3 suits. So I don't know if there was 5 different lawsuits from 5 different people. So I just won't bring that up. But here's something interesting Sir Richard found, where this was like an appeal. So it seems he got another job, and he got fired. And this is working for the state or for the city. Yeah, the state. And he's, I think, sued again. All of this that I'm saying, by the way, is I am not an attorney, and I'm only looking over these documents briefly. So go do your own research before you look at it. But this is just what I'm reading it as I go. It's an appeal that where it seems that he tried to get his job back or something, and then they bring this as a reference as to tantrum me through. So on April 19, 2021, while having a discussion with your supervisor, building on plan reviewer, blah, 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 regarding a job assignment you were working on, you became frustrated, stormed out of the office, and shouted profanities that could be heard by the entire plan review team. Several minutes later, you're called back to Ms. Shetta's office to discuss the incident and your inappropriate behavior. Building inspector Jason was also present at the time. On January 20th, 2021, a similar outburst happened between you and your supervisor while working remote. You were working remotely and while discussing blah, blah, blah. So, Drive became frustrated and abruptly hung up, and Ms. Shetta during the conversation. The letter concluded Ms. Wax violated parish agreements. You engaged in prohibited conduct that was unbecoming and reflect unfavorable. Your behavior was inappropriate, unprofessional, disruptive. Your profanity was overheard by several employees as well as a customer on the phone. As Jefferson Parish employees, it is expected of you to behave respectful and civil at all times. While you were frustrated and your outbursts may have provided you short-term relief, and long-term consequences could be damaging for your career, it is critical to communicate effectively with others and to use proper channels to voice your concerns and dissatisfaction. So this was the letter advised that Mr. Wax, pursuant to Jefferson Parish personnel rule, his working test period would terminate and he would be reinstated to his former position as pump station operator, Department of Drainage. The letter set forth. So it seems that he was, I don't know, got a promotion and quickly lost it. That's my takeaway. And I don't know, I thought I saw anger there at the interview. He was like sitting there confrontational with the board. So I totally believe this. It's some people, can you imagine? And what was his reason for, there are other people who have guns who shouldn't have guns. Wouldn't you rather someone in the street who has a gun that knows how to use a gun like me? Wow, you sound like a man, baby. Like, couldn't you literally, it was my son that did the CP, and it was my friends that were looking at animals and, you know, people having a party. And yeah, but don't you want a good guy with the gun? No, bro, we don't want you anywhere near a gun. You seem to have a temper to me, and scary to think that you were a police officer for all those years, a sergeant, as a matter of fact. We need, you know, it only takes one bad cop to give all the good ones a horrible reputation, and man, you should not be in the uniform, and you certainly shouldn't have a part in. That's my opinion, though. What's yours? And with that, I'll let you go.
The first time you said it was your son, and he's doing time for this. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the second time when they found it, you said it was your friend.
Friends.
That is what the report said. You stated that my friends were looking at bestiality, and it was disgusting, but they were looking at it on your computer.
That was, right, when I had brought it, I said that they had been looking at my computer, correct? Right, but as far as the other charges go, that was, that this, the Stapleton said, yeah, I knew nothing about that.
But
Now,
you
I
did
knew
know
nothing
your
about
friend.
that too, but other people had access to my computer, that was my point. That was my point, I didn't have.
But I mean, I'm just curious. I mean,
Yes, sir.
you know,
Yes,
you
sir.
said you was in law enforcement. I was in law enforcement.
Oh, I know.
I never let nobody look at pornography on my computer.
Well,